Hi, Sue Borison here. Today I'm with Kristin Joy Carothers, who is a licensed clinical psychologist. And we had a whole game plan for what we were going to talk about, but we're going to pivot because it seems irresponsible to not take this opportunity to talk about what's going on in the news right now. And we have a platform where we talk to parents of teenagers. And what I would like to ask you is, what should we be talking about right now? What does that conversation look like?
Okay. I think the first place that we have to start is that a lot of people woke up this morning or yesterday and had the thought, what in the world is happening? Can things get any worse? Will things get any better? Why is everybody so angry? And I think where we start conversations, especially with teenagers or with everybody, is to just acknowledge that we are all feeling either anxious, angry, or confused. And there are a number of things that we've seen over the last couple of days that have signaled something is really wrong in America. I think one of the things that I'll start with that I saw when George Floyd was initially murdered by the police was a quote from Will Smith that said, "Racism hasn't increased, it's just being filmed." And if everybody can just acknowledge that Black people in America and members of many underrepresented groups in America have experienced racism on multiple levels for years and years and years. And it's gotten to the point where it's too much. So the first point is just acknowledge that all of us are having an emotional experience right now, and we might not agree with other people's perspectives, but we know that there's a problem. We got to start there.
Okay, so our teenagers, in some ways, they may be more progressive than we are. They may have a deeper understanding than we do. So it might not, and in some houses it may, some not, but this might actually be less of a I know the answer than we should talk about this, right?
Yes, I think it's really important to kind of allow teenagers to lead the discussion and to ask questions. So right before we had this call, I have a 16-year-old that's my cousin, who I think of as a nephew, who I spoke with along with my mom in Chicago. And he was concerned because they're still in school and his classmates were upset about the fact that a teacher had an assignment due today. And a lot of his friends, now this is a diverse school that he attends, but a number of the students were Black and were saying, how can we work after what's happened with Black Lives Matter and what's going on right now? And initially his response was, are they being hard on the teacher, or what type of experience have we had? And so I asked, we just talked about his experience. He lives in Chicago, and last night as he went to bed, he heard sirens. Talked to another close friend who attends a different high school in a majority Black neighborhood. That friend was unable to sleep last night. His community was destroyed. I think one of the things that we got to remember is that teenagers are experiencing this differently depending on the environments that they live in. That's why I like what you said. We need to kind of sit back and have a dialogue and listen and hear from them about what they've heard and what they understand as being the problem.
So that's a little uncomfortable because I'm used to kind of driving the agenda as the parent. And I frankly feel ill-equipped to drive any kind of conversation about what should happen here.
One of the things that's important to do is to be open-minded. And I think there are racial components to this and cultural components. So for parents of white teenagers who are growing up in environments where there are more people who look like them than people who don't, I think there's maybe a lot of teaching that has to be done about systemic racism, systemic issues for kids who are growing up in an environment where they have access to diversity or to who are interacting with kids from all different backgrounds, they may even have more information to bring to the table than their parents do. And so I think we really have to go on a case-by-case basis. And the best thing for a parent to do is to just start with, tell me what you're thinking about all of this. What's it been like for you to see these things on social media? What have you heard? What do you think about what you've heard? What makes sense? What are you confused about? And then to share your perspective. Something that I think came up in a conversation with a white colleague was how to empower your children when they hear explicit racism or kind of hidden racist comments, how to respond. So how can we make things better? You hear things and people say it's just a joke. It's not a joke. So it's almost like the way you address bullying. Bullying doesn't get better if you just ignore it. You have to say something, or you've got to ask for help. And so to even just say, what you just said wasn't kind, or please don't say that around me. I don't like it. You see something, you say something. That's one step that I think people from other communities, as well as kids and parents from Black communities, can say and be empowered to say.
So first of all, I want to put out there that this idea of being an anti-racist, right? Like that's like being an upstander. And so that feels really good to articulate, but I don't think many of us know what that actually means. So how do we join in together in solving a problem that probably can't be solved by either party by themselves?
You start in your home, and then you go to your community. In your home, you teach about systemic racism and oppression. You provide your kids with opportunities to see other people's perspectives. So even like historical information about how other groups got to this country or how we even became a country. Yes, we're taking a constitution test, we're learning this. But there's information that's taught at school that may not be accurate, that can be supplemented in other experiences. So within your home, just saying, hey, we're going to check out this PBS documentary, Eye on the Prize, and learn about the voting rights bill and what happened for African Americans and women in terms of getting the right to vote. Hey, we're going to check out this piece that's on the Holocaust and survivors and how their DNA has been impacted by the trauma they've experienced. We're going to learn about how the Japanese came and worked on railroads and were later put into concentration camps of their own. It really starts at home. Because we can't, it gets overwhelming to think, well, I'm not going to protest. I can't go to one of the events. I don't know where to send money. I don't know what to do. We can start by educating our kids.
So I love that. It's very concrete and very doable. I love what you said about starting in your home and moving to your community. So there's a sense that that's an easy thing to do, but not everybody is willing.
And you can be shamed by your community when you speak up, or people may not invite you, or people may tease you when you speak up to try to protect somebody else. It's this thing called burden, okay? And I just told my little cousin, as a Black male, a young Black male, there's a lot of burden that he has to shoulder when he goes into spaces that are white. One of the burdens for him is that he has to articulate or explain Black people's perspective.
Yeah.
And this is something that Black people who don't only exist in Black spaces learn to do from a very early age. It's called code switching, or you're doing explaining. And it's a burden that we just assume. And privilege, or white privilege, makes it such that you don't have to even think about that. You never have that burden. And if things are going to progress, white people from other communities are going to have to be brave and pick up just a tiny piece, just saying, I don't like that joke.
So the first step in that burden is that I have to take it on myself to educate myself.
Educate yourself.
And then the next thing is that I have to rise up and say, that is not okay.
This is not okay.
I love that. I love the layering of this and
Mm-hmm.
seeing that there is a way to make change.
Yeah.
The part that I think is really hard is that we come at it with our own emotional insecurities. And
Yes.
so let's say you reach out to somebody who
Mm-hmm.
isn't interested in the conversation. It's very easy to retreat and say, have your kid come and say, well, I went to school and I went up to someone who looked different to me and said, let's sit together for lunch. And they said, no, I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do we respond to that? Because that can really make people say, okay, I'm done. I tried. It didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We try once and it doesn't work. And so, I mean, it's not because I think we're lazy. I think it's more that we have egos that get wounded also.
And it's hard.
And it's uncomfortable and hard. So you reach out and you try. It, the reception isn't, the love fest that you pictured.
Here's the thought I want you to have. That's what people of color in this country experience every single day. Okay? It's not about me. This doesn't just happen to me. It's my first time experiencing it and it's uncomfortable. But guess what? I've learned something. I've learned what it feels like to try to reach out to someone and to be shut down. There are many reasons that person may have shut you down. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they didn't trust you. Why might they not trust you? Maybe they've had negative experiences in the past. Maybe they think you're not genuine and that this is like a one-time attempt and you're not going to try anymore. And they've been there before and they don't want their feelings hurt, or they don't want to have the experience where they thought somebody really wanted to be their friend, but that person was kind of just engaging in this like surface interaction because they thought they had to. Check the box. Hey, I said hi. He didn't say hi back. All right, I tried. Black people are hard. This is going to be uncomfortable for white people. This is going to be hard for white people. And if we want anything to change, it's going to take trying. It's almost like learning to do a new dance. So I'm thinking about TikTok and how kids from all nationalities and backgrounds will do the same viral dance and put their own spin on it. Because it's just what you do. We're learning a new dance. What you do is you acknowledge that racism is real. You acknowledge that people may be uncomfortable or may not trust you, but they're justified in that experience. And just keep trying. Just like we find commonalities in music, and kids who have never been around Black people will have an artist that they love who is Black. I just think we have to think about it as like a dance. You have to be willing to learn something from someone you don't know. You have to be willing to validate that perspective. Why is it okay for us to be accepting of all different types of music, but we can't be accepting of other people's experience? Because I've had a number of conversations about white guilt and white shame, and I'm so glad that it's coming up. We have white people who are actively saying this is wrong. And it's because they feel ashamed of the behavior of systems and historical things that have happened. And they're like, I don't want people to think this is what I think. I am ashamed. Oh my goodness, I had such privilege and I didn't even realize it. I feel so guilty for not even knowing. Like maybe I did something wrong in not knowing or not acknowledging my experience. But what's happening is it's moving people to actually engage. So whereas, in the civil rights movement, you might hear my parents say, oh, well, there were some white people who were on our side. There were some good white people. That's what you will hear older Black people say. There were some. You had a protest in Denver that was majority white, where people like laid down and outlined themselves in chalk because there was like this amount of like disgust that I believe comes from shame about you want to do better. You want to repair because some of the things that have been done are absolutely wrong. And they've been done by people you love, family members, friends that you think are good people. But it stops when it comes to how they interact with Black people. So like in my clinical practice, I had my patients today were white, and it came up. And they said it. I didn't say it. In my conversations with my friends who are white, they've said it. I haven't had to
So
say
it feels different now.
it. It's different.
Yeah.
But look what it took for it to be different. Look at the amount of rage. Cities had to be destroyed. Colin Kaepernick tried silently and peacefully, and he was ostracized.
Kristin Carothers, thank you so much. Thanks for pivoting
Thank
today
you.
with me. And thank
Thanks so
you for
much.
sharing what you're living through and great advice. Really appreciate it.